Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 9 Frames Podcast. This is episode 81, and it is Monday, March 4th, 2024. I am Bill Whalen.
And I'm Mike Whalen.
Be sure to catch us as always on YouTube at 9 Frames Podcast. Our Spotify is 9 Frames, and our X is at 9 Frames Pod. Please follow us on there. Subscribe, like, comment, and share if you enjoy the show.
Yeah, not a whole lot of news today, but there are a couple of, I would say, pretty important moves. One of the big free agents is off the board now, and a massive extension for another guy.
Yeah, finally names are coming off the board, and we are in the 20s in terms of how many days until opening day, so those guys that aren't signed, they better get signed and quick.
Yeah, we'll get right on into it.
Getting into the news, and one name we have been talking about a lot this offseason has been Matt Chapman. He's known for his phenomenal defense at third base.
Couldn't really figure out why he was still available.
One of those names that it just seems like cannot get off the board. Also one of those guys who is a Boris guy, though.
Well, yeah, it's because he was seeking $150 million plus, and he ended up not getting anywhere near that.
Now, Matt Chapman does end up signing a guaranteed 3-year, $54 million contract with the San Francisco Giants. This deal is structured almost exactly like that Cody Bellinger deal we just talked about.
I absolutely love this move for the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge upgrade at third base from whatever they were going to be running out there.
JD Davis.
Yeah, and I mean, they brought back the Panda, but I don't think he's going to be playing third.
Definitely not.
So, I mean, you just got one of, if not the best defensive third baseman in baseball for, I mean, $54 million over 3 years. It's a pretty good deal, I would say. I know he struggled with the bat last year, but he could pick that up.
He's a peaks and valley type of guy, so if you get that peak,
who knows?
Then he can hit well, yeah.
Maybe if he has the right coaching, he just becomes a peak guy and he just learns how to hit more consistently.
Like I said, he has opt-outs after the first and second year of the agreement, very much like Cody Bellinger. He could earn $20 million for 1 year, $38 million for 2 years, $54 million for those 3 years, or $73 million for a 4-year contract total.
Yeah, I mean, great deal for both sides. I think the Giants were looking to solidify their lineup a little bit more, and they've added Jorge Soler and Matt Chapman now.
I was going to say, they added a lot of offense. A lot of offense they added this offseason, but now they got Matt Chapman here who is going to shore up that defense at what is probably the hardest position out there in the infield.
I mean, at least a third of their lineup is going to be new this year, so they got Jung-Ho Lee, Jorge Soler, and now Matt Chapman. So those are three guys that are supposed to be big pieces for them now.
Talking about those peaks and valleys he does go through. In 2023, he hit .384 in April, but then he flatlined after that, generating a .205, .298, and just a .361 slugging on that slash the rest of the way. Not great.
I
had
remember
a lot of trouble against fastballs.
I remember he came out swinging hot in April, and then it just straight downhill.
I mean, even with that flatline, though, last year he batted .307 with an .890 OPS against lefties. So he is still that guy against lefties on any given day.
Yeah, he'll definitely take that.
4-time Gold Glover and a 2-time Platinum Glover and a 1-time All-Star, so we'll see if he can get back to that way.
Great move for both sides, honestly. I know it kind of sucks Chapman got a little bit less money than he wanted. Well, not a little bit. It was half the money he wanted.
It's the same thing that ended up happening with Bellinger as well. If I'm correct, Chapman ended up turning down a lot of money from the Blue Jays.
He did.
So, I mean, he could have got more here, but this is one of those deals like Bellinger where he bets on himself. And if he has a better offensive year, he could test the market again next year.
It's another situation, though, where Scott Boras completely screwed his client, like Michael Conforto, when he turned down a bunch of money from the Mets, and then he ended up getting nothing.
Yeah, this is where I had Chapman going at the beginning of the offseason, but not how I saw him getting there.
Yeah, I mean, good to see him sign, though. At least he'll be ready for opening day, you'd think.
Agreed. We will talk about an extension now, and we will talk about Zach Wheeler.
This came in this morning.
This one came out of nowhere, honestly. Nobody really had any news coming that he was going to be a free agent this upcoming fall, but that's not going to happen now. He signs a 3-year extension with the Phillies. It begins in 2025 and runs through the 27 season.
Yeah.
$126 million to make a $42 million ED.
Which is the highest AAV for an extension ever. And I was wondering, when I saw it originally, because they didn't give the numbers, I was like, I wonder why Zach Wheeler would do this when he's been so dominant. I mean, why wouldn't you test free agency? That's why. They gave him $42 million a year, and he is one of the highest paid pitchers in baseball now.
Not to mention, this is a team that they are convinced that he is their guy.
Players in general.
This is a team that he's their guy. The GM is quoted in saying that they wouldn't trade him for the best players of all time. I don't remember exactly. I think he said Ted Williams we wouldn't trade him for, or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so Zach Wheeler's he's the guy, and he's probably starting opening day for them if you had to guess.
And they did bring back Nola early in the offseason. If you do, I think he was the first signing that we talked about. So they're going to have their 1 and 2 for at least the next 4 years.
And when you think about it, the Phillies formula is one that we've been seeing working for the most recent years, and they will have that exact formula going forward for at least the next 3.
Yeah, it sucks for us Met fans and other NL East fans, but Wheeler gets the money that he deserves because the first contract he signed, people were like, "Oh, it's too much money for him," and he ended up looking like he was underpaid.
That
because
was a
of
5-year, $118 million contract.
Yeah,
so.
he ended up looking like he was underpaid with how good he was for Philly. So, and they reward him with a massive 3-year extension.
This deal doesn't have a formal no trade clause, but he will soon earn what is known as the 10 and 5 rights, which I've never heard of before now. If you have more than 10 years of service time, which he already does, and you complete your 5th season with one team, which he's doing with the Phillies this year, you could veto any trade.
Yeah, and I really don't think that they're going to end up trading him.
Like
it's going to be tough to trade somebody making that much money now, because if you're trying to trade him, you're either in a bad spot or he's not good.
Especially considering the front office has said we will not trade this guy in the past, so things would have to change pretty severely.
Yeah, I don't foresee that happening in the next 4 years.
He had a 3.06 ERA in his first 4 seasons with Philadelphia, which is just really solid. A 1.37 adjusted ERA plus, so well above average there. 675 Ks over 629 in the third innings pitched. Also led major leagues in innings pitched with 213 and a third in 2021, where he was an all-star that season.
Yeah,
he won a Gold Glove last year.
He was up there in the Cy Young voting too in 2021.
Yeah, he's been having some really special seasons for the Phillies, and he seems to be like that 1-2 punch with him and Nola is going to be cooking for years to come.
And I mean, they went to the World Series 2 years ago, and last year they went back to the playoffs and beat the Braves again. So the formula is working. Why not keep your two-headed monster at the top?
Yeah, the 2 deals we've talked about so far on this episode have just been win-wins for the players and the teams here.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been tough, obviously. Like we said, Chapman took a bit of a pay cut and waited on that, but he does get the bet-on-yourself deal.
Yeah, and he's going to be a part of a team that's probably going to compete for, at minimum, a wild card spot.
They have been pretty aggressive this offseason. We'll keep our eye on those Giants. Now we'll move it on over to the East, where we will talk about the Boston Red Sox, who are grabbing C.J. Cron. He's headed on a minor league deal that includes an invitation to big league camp.
Yeah, I actually thought that C.J. Cron was already signed to a team. I'm not going to lie to you. So I think this is a good move for the Red Sox, especially with a DH.
Specifically, a team like the Red Sox, they could really use this depth piece.
Yeah, I mean, they got their first baseman. Everybody's really high on Tristan Cassis over there. I've seen people even say that he's going to be a dark horse for the AL MVP, which is crazy. I didn't have that, but
that is pretty wild.
Yeah, so this is a nice depth move at minimum, and shore up your DH a little bit too.
He's 34 years old now, and last year he played for the Rockies and Angels. He batted .248 with 12 home runs and 37 RBI in 71 games. He was dealing with a back injury most of last year.
Yeah, when he's healthy though, we've seen him have some really crazy years. Like he
literally the year before.
Yeah, he can put up some numbers.
In 2022, as you said, he was an all-star. He hit .257 with 29 home runs and a career best 102 RBI in 150 games for the Rockies.
Yeah.
That's a season.
Yeah, that's a great season, and he played a bunch of games too. He only missed 12 games, so the Red Sox are definitely hoping they can get that C.J. Cron back.
He comes into that division that is infamous for hitters' ballparks, and we'll see if he can get back on track offensively.
Best of luck. I've always liked C.J. Cron, I'm not going to lie.
The next thing we're going to talk about, this is a little funny. We saw Kiké Hernandez just sign that 1-year, $4 million deal with the Dodgers to go back, but he comments on free agency here on the Foul Territory show, I believe.
Great show.
He says, "I'm not going to say the C word, but I think the C word needs a capital C." And he's talking about collusion there, so that's a pretty heavy word to throw around. The timing of the calls from teams was very similar. The numbers were pretty much the same throughout, so the accusation is basically that teams are setting their market by communicating with each other and talking about how much they're willing to spend on players in general.
Yeah, it's not really a good look. And also, I mean, what he said further on was that teams would be like, hey, we have this offer on the table for you. You have like 48 hours to decide if you want it, and if you don't decide, we're going to offer it to somebody else and pull it from you. Like, that seems like you're acting in bad faith to me.
Pretty shady business practice for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how are you supposed to have the trust of players and agents if that's the kind of shit that you're pulling?
And it probably is a lot of the reason that this offseason's been so strange, and a lot of these free agents are still on the market.
That combined with teams just being fed up with Scott Boris's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a combination, and I mean, if there's collusion by teams and agents that are working in bad faith, deals aren't going to get done.
They might be doing the collusion because they don't like the way that Boris and the other agents are acting.
Worth noting that in the
specifically Boris, though.
In the 80s, there was a huge strike and lawsuit for this exact reason. So, I mean, if that ends up happening again, that
could be headed there.
Could be a real shame, especially considering we just narrowly avoided a strike a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that lockout was brutal.
Kiké ends up getting his deal with the Dodgers, so I just thought it was a little strange that as soon as he gets that deal, that it seems like would be the deal he wants, he comes out and immediately makes a statement.
Yeah, it's also interesting that he said that if it wasn't the Dodgers, he was going to be signing with the Yankees. That was the other option.
Yeah, I mean, Dodgers and Yankees, those are two franchises.
Those are some options to have on the table for yourself, man.
Yeah, Kiké ends up going back to the Dodgers, where obviously he has been very comfortable for the last 5 years, give or take.
Probably who we best associate him with.
Definitely, besides the Red Sox, who he was just with last year. The last thing I want to talk about here, I also find extremely interesting. It came out in a report from The Athletic that, I mean, this was a direct interview with Kris Bryant, so it's hard to say that he's being quoted out of context here.
Yeah, and he's definitely not making it up.
He's basically just saying that he was not familiar with the Colorado Rockies situation before signing his 7-year, $182 million contract to play for them.
Yeah, he said he didn't really do enough homework on their farm system, and it's just the whole situation is crazy.
It really is.
How do you put faith in an organization for 7 years without knowing what they actually are?
And this is a team that, I mean, baseball diehard fans like me and you, I think it's pretty clear to us that this is a team that was in obscurity and wasn't going to compete.
Everybody was shocked. They were like, where is Kris Bryant going to go? Is he going to go back to San Francisco? Will he go back to Chicago even? And he signs with the Rockies, and we're like...
He was even talked about with the Yankees. There were options for him.
Yeah, he signs with the Rockies, and everyone's like, well, I guess Kris Bryant's just going to be on the Rockies for 7 years for some reason.
I mean, supposedly he was discussing a contract with them before the lockout started in December 2021. When it ended 3 months later, everyone was reporting to camp, but he wasn't. Because of that, he felt rushed to make a decision. The quote is, "It's like, oh shoot, I need to get there. There were other teams interested, but I didn't want to wait around. It was a completely different situation for a lot of free agents at the time. I guess I didn't do as much research into the prospects as I could."
I would bet my life that the Giants were one of the teams that wanted to bring him back, too.
100%.
And I cannot believe he didn't even give it a chance.
Yeah, no, Kris Bryant and the Giants were one of those ones that it just seemed like a marriage that made sense. Same with him going back to Chicago, honestly. Him going to Colorado
there were so
didn't
many
make a lick of sense.
There were so many options. I could have seen him going to a team like Boston before that. I mean, Colorado, I didn't have them signing. I didn't even think they would want to spend that much money.
Brian hasn't been playing much in his first, 3 years with Colorado.
I think this will be his third.
Yeah, he hasn't played much with them. He's been injured, and then when he does, he hasn't been the most productive. He's not really what we thought he would do playing in Colorado, a hitter's ballpark, obviously.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, the guy was a former MVP in, 2016?
Yeah, perennial all-star type guy, too. One of the faces of the league, for sure.
Maybe it was 2017, but...
he was put on a billboard. No, I think he was the 16 MVP with Trout.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, pretty crazy that just this far from that, we're talking about him being in obscurity along with the Rockies.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he can find his groove in the health department and then be able to translate it back on the field, because when he's going, I mean, he could have crazy years in Colorado. The vision's there.
Specifically when this contract was signed, everyone was like, man, the Rockies aren't going to be good, but it looks like Kris Bryant's going to have really crazy offensive seasons as long as he could stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to do that.
Hasn't been able to put it together.
So we'll see if he can, but I thought it was astounding that the guy just, to almost you're given a decade of your life's work, your career, and you're not really familiar with the prospects.
Yeah, and at the time, he was one of the most talked about free agents, too.
Yeah,
so everybody was shocked.
Like you said, the 2016 MVP, just 5 years before this, and then he's not going to sign a contract until camp, and he feels like he needs to. He goes to Colorado for 7 years.
Yeah.
You'd think you would, if you felt rushed, maybe you wouldn't take that much length on it.
Yeah, right? Maybe, once you see that number, though, you're probably like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because now it's a very weird situation with this story coming out, how that team's going to respond and how the clubhouse is going to respond.
Yeah, the Rockies are not, they're probably in the worst division to be in. All of those teams are pretty solid. The Dodgers are going to cook people. Yeah. The D-backs just went to the World Series. We were just talking about how the Giants have improved, and the Padres still have a pretty killer lineup.
It sounds harsh, but I think you could put this season through a simulator 100,000 times, and I think the Rockies are probably coming in fifth
every
most
time.
Of those simulators.
Probably every time, yeah. Maybe the Padres could have a really, really rough year, but I don't see it.
Yeah, this is a fifth-place team still. They're not getting any better, it seems like.
They've been in the basement for a couple years now, man. They just won't.
To see. It
they won't
sounds
go
harsh,
up.
but it is what it is, and Kris Bryant's still there for a good chunk of time.
Yeah, and they were in the playoffs, 2017? They were in the wild card game against the D-backs?
Yep.
They've fallen so far, and they just can't get out of the obscurity.
Yeah, and like Kris Bryant said, the prospects are not great right now, so we'll see what the Rockies do going forward, but not the great path right now. Thank you for listening wherever you do. That was episode 81 of the 9 Frames podcast, and it is Monday, March 4th, 2024. I've been Bill Whalen.
And I've been Mike Whalen.
Be sure to catch us, as always, on YouTube at 9 Frames Podcast. Our Spotify is 9 Frames, and our X is at 9 Frames Pod. Please follow us on there, subscribe, like, share, and comment if you like the show.
Yeah, we appreciate it as always, and we're getting real close now. Like you said, you mentioned that it's in the 20s for the days until opening day. The Dodgers and Padres are going to be playing in Korea on March 20th and 21st, I believe. So we're getting there, man.
Yeah, let us know what you think of the deals, what you think of these pretty interesting comments by both Kiké Hernandez and Kris Bryant that have come out this past week.
Yeah, and I know we didn't see you guys on Friday, but we hope you had a good weekend and enjoy the start to your week.